Geek Channel, I'm going to say, because I don't know if we're putting this out as a podcast episode or just like a bonus commentary for our channel. But I'm Brennan.
I'm Zach, and this is like a video essay or something. I don't know.
Something like that. Even though we don't have an essay written, I suppose it would qualify under that category as a discussion or some shit.
But
Demonetized.
Yep, in the past week, we've put in a lot of hours into Baldur's Gate 3.
I've never played that game before. I don't know what you're talking about.
Ah, darn. Yeah, but it reached the 9th highest peak of concurrent players in Steam history.
Mm-hmm.
With 814,000 people playing. And the fact, because I saw Asmon reacting to this too, is yeah, there was that many people playing, but there were still over 600,000 people still playing a week later.
Still playing,
so they
yeah,
didn't really lose that. The game is good enough and is able to retain enough people that, you know, it doesn't like go from like 800,000 all the way down to like 5,000.
500 people. I mean, I think that's a great testament to the success of the game. Like you just said, is the fact that it reached those crazy heights and it really didn't come down from them that much. Like, yeah, 200,000 people is a lot, but in the grand scheme of things, having over 500,000 people playing your game consistently at the same time is crazy.
Oh yeah, it is just insane. And I mean, the game earns every bit of praise that it gets. I mean,
it's okay. I haven't had any.
Yeah, it's like a solid, like, like at least like 9 out of 10. Like that's not that good. Like,
yeah, it's only like a 10 out of 10. Like, that happens all the time. It's like pretty mid.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like some small indie company.
It's not every single waking hour I can is spent playing it or anything.
Yeah, I totally, like, after a week only have like 65 hours in the game.
That is nuts to me. That is nuts. It's such a good fucking game.
It really is. And so I think one of the things it does really, really well, which helps with replayability, is it gives you choice, and like all the choices matter, and there's so many different ones. Like I think the first biggest choice you can make is to save or destroy the grove. You can either side with the goblins, which has its own benefits. I'm sure that's what I'm going to do with my next playthrough.
Just going evil.
Yeah, and side with,
which is
and then you also
you're
get
a druid, aren't you, in your second playthrough?
Yeah, which apparently leads to like some unique dialogue. At least once you get to the grove, because they're like, oh, yo, I think I haven't gotten that far yet.
One of us. Yeah, I can already tell that's one thing that I'm gonna come back and play this game a lot, because it's before it came out, everyone was like, it's like 600 hours, and like, yeah, it totally can be, but it can also be like a 30-40 hour game, which is still awesome because you paid $60 for it and you get a complete product. We'll get there. That's another portion of the discussion altogether, but it's so good.
Yeah, and like
there's so much unique replayability, like you just said. Like me playing a ranger, like I have all these different like nature aspects that I can communicate with people on and change up dialogue. Whereas like you as a druid can probably get along with the druid people better at the start.
And like being a bard, because that's what I rolled first, was a draconic bard. Is just, there's so many fun dialogue options, especially with persuasion and even just bard in general. Like there's this bard tiefling in the grove that you can go up to, and she's trying to sing this song to finish it to talk, because her bard friend died, and she's stuck. She can't come up with a new song, and then you just help sing her. You start singing the new parts, and then she finishes her song and she sings it for you. It's pretty cool. And then like when you're trying to, we were talking about this yesterday, when you try and do the elemental genie thing in the circus in Baldur's Gate, one of the deception things you can do to like catch them off balance is rip a fat fart.
And that's, as far as I can tell, that's just you being a bard, because I didn't get that option, even though I passed all the like prerequisite checks to find everything.
And that's the
Oh,
like
so that's so cool.
you can they give you the option if your charisma's high enough to pretty much talk every major boss, at least in Act 2, to,
Hmm.
unalive themselves.
Themselves, exactly, and it's so metal. And there's different ways to do it because we did the we both did the House of Healing. We both managed to convince the Doctor Bro to commit seppuku, and we both did it different ways, but still had the same end result and still got unique dialogue for each. Really cool.
It was just, and then like on top of adding on to that replayability, there's 12 different classes.
Hmm.
Each class has at bare minimum, I think, 3 subclasses. Some having more than others, like clerics have a lot of subclasses, and so do I think wizards have a lot of subclasses as well. And some are
Hmm.
limited to just like the 3. Like Bard has like the School of Lore, the School of like Arcana, and the School of Swords.
Hmm.
But and then you can create your character look however you want. I think there's 12 different races, ranging from human, half elf, all the way down to Dragonboard, Githyanki, and
Get young.
um, half orc, and it just opens up to be able to
And
play
every
how you
single one of
want.
those, and every single one of those has their own added like uniqueness as well. I'm sure. Like if you
Oh
know
yeah,
you're a half orc, I'm sure like something with like the goblins, they might be a little more receptive to you. Because like for me, like I'm a smooth skinned human ranger. They're like, you, I hate you. But if you're more of like a monstrous type of class or a type of race, they're probably like one of us, or like a drow. Like if you go in and talk to the drow, maybe they're more receptive of you because you're similar races.
and it's
It's just
so good, and you can tell a lot of, obviously, I mean, they spent 6 years and they had 400 developers working on this game to
mhm.
make it as complete and polished as they could at
And
launch.
it's so backed up by the reception from people, and the only people that are receiving it poorly are other game developers because they're feeling like there's pressure on them to deliver complete products that aren't scummy now,
And like,
which
to
is
an
a good thing.
extent, I can kind of understand where some devs are coming from, because
Yeah.
they had a lot of resources poured into this game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like it should at least raise the bar a little bit for AAA
Hmm.
games, because a lot of these companies have the money, they have the time to put into making quality games that don't rely on battle pass systems or DLC or anything like that. It's
Skins.
exactly what happened with Elden Ring. Elden Ring
Hmm.
turned out this game that nobody really talked about it much going into launch. Nobody really knew how big it was. Granted, we all knew Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be ridiculously big, but still over
Right.
delivering. And it's done. You can just play through the game. There's nothing else to buy. There's nothing else to
Hmm.
download. You don't have to worry about, buying a subscription or anything. Nothing. You pay $60, which the thing that sucks is on console for PlayStation when it comes out on September 6th is going to be
This is
$70.
Yeah, that's
And that's
more. I feel like
entirely
that's more.
Sony's decision.
Yeah, it's just locked into the paywall of console anymore.
But you pay that money, you have hundreds of hours of gameplay for you.
Yeah.
And that's
One
it.
thing that I think is super impressive to point out, like someone, me being someone and you being someone who have played RPGs for a long time, and like you especially, you play a lot of like JRPGs that are very story rich.
Mhm.
And until recently, I kind of shied away from RPGs as a whole, other than like Ring. But like growing up, Fallout and Skyrim and Oblivion, those are all huge, huge influences for me. And one of my favorite things in all of these games is dialogue, like the interaction with you have with the world and with the characters in the world. And this game has over like what, like 2 million words in the script.
Oh
They're
yeah,
all
like the
voiced
two
by all the
million different
characters.
like dialogue lines. It's ridiculous.
It's insane. It is insane. And they're all well done. I haven't ran into any like voice acting that sucks yet, like that was rushed or anything.
No.
It's
And
very cool.
like bouncing off of that, the side characters are all really, well written. Side characters or main character if you want to play as that character, because they give you that option.
Yeah, you can play the pre-generated exactly.
Um And there's one pre-generated, which is what I'm doing with my druid, and it's like the dark one. And that's the
Hmm.
only one that it has like a predetermined like back history, like your history's gone or something like that. You don't remember anything about your past, um,
Interesting.
and you want to try and figure that out. But that one you can customize your race and class. The other ones you're preset as those. But like Gale is kind of interesting. He's the human wizard. He's kind of funny, especially at the start. Karlak, Mommy Karlak, um, phenomenal character. She's
I'm sure. No.
she's really funny. The voice actress who that's the other thing. Like they didn't like a lot of the voice actors haven't really done that much.
Yeah, they're not like crazy. Like it's not like Matt Mercer is voicing every character, although that'd be pretty cool too.
Yeah. But Karlak is just really funny. She's, you know, quirky. I guess that's the word. And
Bro's just
she's
hard.
just so.
You just bro's cheesing over there.
She's just such a fun. And then like whenever you click on her, switching characters, she's either like singing a song or she's like, "Fuck
Singing a
yeah!"
song, or like, oh, pull a fucka when you select her to go to attack someone. She's like, ah, poor guy. But
Uh,
and then like on my flip side, so yeah, obviously Zach has spent the most time getting to know and doing the romanceable options of
which
Karlak.
spoilers? The thing I think one thing they did miss on is you can't save Karlak. Like
I
you
don't know
can't
if it's a
fix her
miss.
heart.
I think that's kind of. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's
Because
kind of a cool, like
there's
desperate.
options, like there are items in the game that would make sense to be able to fix her heart. But
I don't know. Because like you were talking about like the cold thing or whatever, that was like, no fire is too hot, but I'm sure it's not counting the fires of hell. Literally, I think it's kind of the legs that can stand on. I don't think it's a miss, but I also didn't romance her, so I feel like you're understandably like, damn, I want to save her because she's my companion, and that's fair.
yeah, and then
And I
you
think that's
have
the fact that
Shadowheart.
you're, yeah, that's I was kidding, but no, yeah, the fact that you say that, I think that's cool because you're thinking about it and like you're like, oh, this would be cool if they did this or da 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 da, and it's not in a negative way. It's just like a D&D campaign. It's like, damn, that'd be cool if that worked like this, which is the source material. So I suppose good job, good job, Larian. But yeah, and then like for me, on the opposite side of the same coin, like I went with Shadowheart because I think her story is very interesting. Like trying to figure out who she is after she. This is all spoilers from here on out for me talking about Shadowheart. Trying to find out after she turns her back on Shar, if you get her to, like finding out who her parents are, if they're still alive, finding out more about herself, and trying to live like her own life for once. It's a cool story. I think it's very, very cool. And even Lae'zel, like there's been little hints of her story I've seen that I just haven't. I kind of hate her, so I don't indulge it as much. But her trying that inner battle of like, does she do what's expected exactly of all of her people to serve their queen blindly, or does she do a little bit of her own thing? Like when she was trying to push you to go to the creche or not.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And then every character has shit like that. I just haven't interacted with all of them.
And Asterion is kind of I'm gonna like because in my next playthrough I'm definitely gonna like switch up my party so I have more characters and I get to learn more about a lot of the characters I didn't really spend a lot of time with.
Mm-hmm.
Asterion has a pretty interesting thing going with his vampire thing. Will is interesting. I might progress this because like he makes that pack with Minerva, Mizera,
Whatever her name is.
and Karlak hates her. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but she tries and manipulates the deal, and makes him make tough decisions. I won't spoil it for you, but there's a really big decision you have to make regarding his pact.
Mm.
Um, which once again allows for more replayability. But Will's is
Yeah,
interesting,
exactly.
but you also like if you decide to side with the goblins, will not join your party
Mm.
because he like hates the goblin or something like that, and he just doesn't think it's right. So he will leave your party, and I think that's when the Drow who works with the goblins will join your party, who I think is a paladin.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. Halsin is pretty interesting. He's the druid,
Yep.
the wood elf druid. Um, his obviously druid abilities are kind of cool, especially once you hit like level 10. You can start transforming to elementals,
Oh, that's interesting.
as well as a freaking dinosaur. So it's really cool. And his story about like saving this kid whose body got ripped in half, like his soul and his body got split into two, and you have to kind of rejoin them. Um, it, the fight for the when you have to protect his portal is a pain because there's a lot of enemies. But as long as you have a decent amount of AoE spells, it's fine.
And like for me, I didn't advance his story because I didn't have him in my party at the time. So when I got done with Act 2, he stayed behind because he wants to heal the land that he feels like he failed, and he's not with me anymore.
And then I think that's all of the party members, isn't it? Who am I forgetting? Because you already talked about Lae'zel, we talked about Shadowheart, we talked about Karlach, Astarion, Will, Gale. I don't think there's any others.
I mean, Withers is in the camp.
Dude, Withers is the home. You got to make sure you find Withers. That's like a really big thing because you could 100%, I think, completely miss him.
You could totally miss him. I almost didn't go through the rest of that temple because like when I went through and was fighting him, I couldn't get through it at the beginning. I was like, oh, whatever. I'll come back another time, and Lord knows I wouldn't have. So I almost didn't find him, and then I did, and he scared me because I was like, oh my god, it's a boss fight. But then he was just like, yo.
So there's 2 other characters you unlock. I actually did get her. Jaheira, who's the head of the
Oof. Of the Harpers in Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, she's a half-elf druid.
Yeah, she's dead as fuck for me.
Yeah, I managed. It was so funny because I managed
I'm so mad at your game.
Fight all of them, and because I had her in my party, she didn't just run ahead, and the game glitched so that none of the enemies actually did their turn. They just kind of sat there, and then it skipped their turn.
Yeah,
it took me like 45 minutes to an hour to do it.
Cheesed it. But hey,
I managed to do it.
I guess.
And then there's another guy called Minsk, who's a human ranger.
Yeah, I know who Minsk is. Minsk and Boo, man. I love them. They're the most frustrating deck in Dungeon Mayhem, that card game we played, the D&D like card game.
Oh, that's Minsk.
Yeah, he's the human with like the purple war tattoo, and he's got the fucking gerbil.
I have no idea how to recruit him, but he's
inside of a mimic somewhere. I know that.
So I think that might be something I do with my next character, is try and recruit him.
You're adventuring, and then it starts shaking, and then he like crawls out, and he's like, "Yo."
Yo, what's up? But
and he's been in this Baldur's Gate series since the beginning. I'm pretty sure is where it comes from.
And tying all that...
I shouldn't say that. I know he's in some source books too. Please don't come for me in the comments, D&D nerds. I want to be one of you. I just don't have...
Tying all that together, Brendan and I have basically like been doing kind of the same thing, following the same path, and we still have almost completely different experiences.
Yeah, we've been doing the same thing in the sense of like the good choices, I guess you could say. Like, we aren't trying to forsake Baldur's Gate. We're not being like super selfish, but our experiences have differed so much, even in just the couple of characters that are swapped out in our parties. It's crazy. It's just like vastly different. Like, the only things that are same is like, oh, we're fighting the same boss.
Yeah.
but different things entirely happen. Like when you did the Ketheric Thorm fight, you were able to convince him to go self-implode early.
Commit toaster bath.
Yeah, early, and I had to fight him a second time, and then I had to... And then I was screaming and screaming out of excitement when I beat him, and I haven't had that in a long-ass time in my game.
And then, so, moving on from story, the game, gameplay-wise, it is something you kind of have to get used to if you're not used to playing games like that. It is turn-based, which
And that is the
does
only
turn
thing.
some people away from it.
Yes, I think it's a big turnoff for a lot of people, myself included. I had no plans of buying this game until the day it came out, and then Zach was talking about it from the very beginning, like him playing a little bit at the beginning, and I was like, all right, bet I'll buy it. Like I just heard him doing the character creation. I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And it was a little weird at first, like trying to get into it and understand the ins and out of it again, because turn-based isn't my thing. But I freaking love it, and like the amount of time you spend out of the turn-based system of it, there's so much. There's so much more than it just being a turn-based RPG.
Oh yeah, and in combat, you know, every person has their turn, and there's
Yep,
certain abilities, and it literally plays through like D&D,
exactly.
where you get your first action, and then you get a bonus action.
And
Depending
may
on your
vary.
class, you could
Extra
get a
action.
second action as well.
Mm-hmm.
There are reactions.
Yep.
You know,
That's one thing that I will say, like having prior D&D knowledge helped me with a lot of this character creation. I
yeah,
didn't want to know how long I'd be taking building a character, going through picking every individual spell otherwise, because I'm like, oh, I know what that does. Click, go. Like,
and
oh, I know what Thorn of Arrows does. I played a ranger in 5th at the beginning. I know what that does.
and enemies have to make certain, your characters have to make certain saves as well, depending
Mm-hmm.
on what attack is thrown at you. It's just it's really it is a little complex and a little hard to get into. But once you figure it
It
out, once you
can be,
start
yeah.
getting those little mechanics down here and there, and especially moving the camera around, which was a little weird at
The
first,
camera's a bit goofy, but you can also just
use a
click on your
controller.
character, and
Yeah, you can
you
also
can
just
click
use a
on your
controller.
character. True, you can do that too. I
Uh,
got used to it with the mouse and keyboard, and I like it. But yeah, it's so good, bro.
yeah,
It's such a good game. I think
and
backtracking back to the triple A developer response to this, I want to add what something I forgot to say. I think I agree with Zach to the extent of like I understand where some of the sweat is coming from for some of the developers, because they're like, I quite literally cannot compete with the scale of this game as far as what they're doing. But I think what it does, thank you, what it does very well is it. Thank you very much. I'll get it. It's okay. Sorry. People are walking back into my house. Um, oh my god, I totally lost my train of thought. It really helps to instill the idea of delivering finished product at launch. Now, I understand for developers of games like Apex, Fortnite, um, God. Is there any other big free-to-play games that are huge right now, or just those
I
still
mean
in main two?
CS:GO is still pretty big.
True. Things like that. I understand, they have to monetize certain aspects of their game because they got to keep the lights on at the studio and pay their employees. But then you have companies like Blizzard, who I love a lot of their stuff and I support them as much as I can, but they released something like with Diablo 4 that was a good, pretty, for the most part, finished game, but then they had the fairly predatory practices of the monetized store that wasn't fully necessary, like having it as an option for some stuff. Like even with this game, there's one singular pack you can buy for $10, but it's like a couple of like cosmetic items in game from previous games, so like that's more of like for fans of the series, and then like character sheets if you want to play the characters in your actual D&D campaign, and that's it. And I love that because it's not like pushing Lae'zel's Heritage Armor Pack and Karlach's Infernal Engine Hammer and like, shit like that. So I just think it's like I don't know. It's a very long monologue, essentially saying there's things that I really hope other studios take away looking at the success of the studio.
Yeah, and I think another one of the big things is delivering on promises,
Yes.
because they promised, you can do this, you can do that, this game will be this long, there are this many things, and there are, and it's not broken, it's not, hidden behind certain things, it's pretty easily attainable. Whereas you have, once again, like with Blizzard, games like Overwatch 2, which has now become the worst reviewed game or one of the
Yep.
worst reviewed games in
On
Steam
Steam.
history,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
866,000 reviews, leading to a total of a 9% out of 100.
Yeah.
Because they promise so many things, but they hide, like, new characters are hidden behind a paywall. It's almost impossible to
Yep.
get new cosmetics without paying for them.
Not paying at all. Yep.
There's no PvE mode. There's no story mode like they promised they were going to give to us. It's just an overall, and they decreased it from 6v6 to a 5v5,
5v5.
which I
That
think
feels
has
weird.
actually made it worse, because I kind of like the idea of 2-2-2, although it did
Yep.
kind of break with the goats meta.
The goats
Those
meta is
some
broken.
people have no idea what I'm talking about. I only know what I'm talking about because of esports.
You were in it. You were in it. Literally, all if anyone wants to know what we're talking about with like the Overwatch meta that kind of started to kill off the first game and laid poor foundations for the 1.2. Let's be honst. But the second
it's like
game,
the 0.5, they went backwards.
yeah, they literally went backwards. But just look up what happened with the GOATS meta of Overwatch. One of my favorite people to see talk about it is Moist Critical. He has a very good commentary on it because they have an esports team, and he's very good business savvy as far as like what makes a good esport, and it's a very interesting dialogue, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, it's still sort of kind of interesting to watch, at least to start. But then you have games like Baldur's Gate, like Elden Ring, like Tears of the Kingdom, where everything is there. You pay the price, like I said earlier, and you have everything the game has to offer, and there's nothing else except for maybe an occasional story DLC that comes out at a later date, but that's just additional content. That's not content that
you can guarantee dollar for dollar it'll be a full-fledged experience. It'll be like a one-shot off of their campaign, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, like
And it
if they
wasn't.
could give us Shadow of the Earth Tree at some point, that'd be pretty pog.
Can I please play it? It's been a year and change. Can I play it?
I'm gonna be so bad when I go back into it.
Oh lord, we're gonna get absolutely annihilated. But yeah, I totally cut you off here, but to say it wasn't stuff that was previously promised and is at a later paywall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't promise something and then deliver the game and then give their promises later, but behind a paywall.
Mm-hmm.
Because even with Overwatch 2, they did deliver some like story stuff, but you have to pay for the battle pass, or pay an additional fee on top of the battle pass, I think, to get it, which is just dumb.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Also, 100% go read some of the Steam reviews for Overwatch 2. They're hilarious.
They're so funny, man. And I will say, outside of the game as a whole, this has just made me want to play D&D again. And I feel like that's the case for a lot of people. That's what I've been seeing a lot of online.
See how well I GM compared to Larian Studios.
Yeah, I'm going to be sitting there and be like, man, Larian did it better, bro. I will say, hey, if you want to take elements of the story and put it in your campaign, I won't rat you out because this shit's dope. But anyway, so it's so much as even like this morning, I was texting Zach. I was like, hey, let's finish up your campaign, because we had to put it on pause because one of our members was, just casually in Europe for like months.
Yeah, and then we had that one time with him gone, and I was really tired.
Bad.
And
It was not even bad. It wasn't bad. It was just off because we were missing a critical campaign member, and we're not like we're not.
It was bad. Trust me.
There's Jason. Hey, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
We're not a group of like 9 people. You miss one, whatever. We have 3 players and a DM, so it's like,
Yeah.
But I told him, I was like, oh, we should finish our campaign, and then I would like to do the next one. Working on one because I've had a burst of inspiration from this game.
I think to wrap up, one of the biggest strong suits, I think, outside like Baldur's Gate 3 really hit all the marks. They did a lot of things extremely well, and the things they did miss here and there. There are things they could have done better. No game's ever perfect.
Exactly.
But the things that they missed on don't take away from the story or the gameplay at all. And it's not really that noticeable that it ruins the experience.
Correct.
uh, like, some of the characters, could obviously be, in my opinion, written a little bit, or like how, like what we were talking about with Karlak, how like things could have probably changed, I think, to make you feel like you actually had a chance to save the character, where instead of them dying. And maybe, like, obviously the world feels extremely lived in, but I think maybe a few more things here and there could have really improved things. And outside of Baldur's Gate, there's not really that many vendors, which sucks because you make Karlak your mule and you have her carrying so much stuff, and then you have to try and find that one vendor that doesn't have anything else for you to buy because you've already bought everything useful off of them.
Yep.
But, and they're obviously, let us know in the comments what other minor things that you noticed. But overall, but I think one of the biggest things is the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is really good.
Dude, when you first get to that like menu select screen and just that like the guttural choir, like dark men's choir in there in the very beginning, and the scene that's playing in the background of like this massive stone door opens and then there's a party that comes down through, and there's like a couple little halflings, a ranger and a cleric, and then a big old dragonborn sword, and like a human in the front with a map. And it's so cool. It's so friggin' cool.
And like some of the songs during the fights are really just like make you feel on edge, and you're like, oh god, something, this is gonna be weird. The other thing, it falls into the stereotypical RPG trope where as soon as it auto saves, something's gonna happen.
Like, oh no!
Why is it auto saving, man? I haven't rested yet.
Who's about to die?
Actually, really quick, that is another minor thing, and that's just a nitpick because it's too close to the source material, but I wish I didn't have to rest so many times to be able to use as many spells as I want.
Yeah. I feel like I agree. That's kind of a minor thing. I had a couple of little minor things. I was like, oh, I wish this wasn't like this. I don't even remember. That's the thing. I don't even remember my nitpicks. You know what I mean? And oh god, it's very good. There's very little things I would change. So as close to a 10 as I can get for a game that's come out. And I mean, it's just another crowning achievement of gaming this year. It's been such a good year for games.
God, it has, and there's still so many great games coming out later this year. I'm excited for Armored Core 6 in about 2.5 weeks. After that, we have Starfield. Lies of P is coming out. I know you might not be big into it, but Spider-Man 2 is coming out too.
I'll watch on it, but I'm not.
When I say I loved the first one, I really, really, really loved the first Spider-Man game.
And I think they're going to improve. And I know the map is getting a lot bigger. And I think you actually might be able to play as Venom too. So I mean, it could be a lot of fun. And there's even more games after that. I just can't think of them right offhand.
Pikmin 4 just came out.
Heck yeah. Listen to that in our podcast. We mentioned that. But definitely from us at VGP, we definitely want to congratulate Larian Studios for a phenomenal game and doing a very, very, very good job. They should feel very proud of themselves. And the dev, especially the social media team, is just really funny with some of their hotfixes, how they hotfixed like penis size and stuff.
I'm sorry, what?
Some of the terms and conditions stuff that you actually read out were very funny.
So, great job, Larian Studios. If you haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, we highly recommend you play it. Give it a shot. Play how you want. And
what I can definitely say is, if you're not a fan of turn-based, I'd wait for it to go on sale, and I'd say at least give it a shot.
Oh yeah, 100%. So
if you don't like fantasy, obviously stay away. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. I apologize. I'm sorry for you.
It's
sorry for you if you don't like fantasy, Bricky.
But
sorry.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments what you think of Baldur's Gate 3. Make sure you subscribe for more geek content, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.